जब जब T20 कैप्टनसी को छोड़ने की मैंने पहले बीसीसीआई से कम्युनिकेट किया। सबसे पहले मैंने बीसीसीआई को अप्रोच किया कि मेरा ये पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है, ये डिसीजन है और इन रीजंस की वजह से मैं ये करना चाहता हूँ। तो उसको बहुत एक अच्छे तरीके से रिसीव किया गया। उसमें कोई ऑफेंस नहीं थी, उसमें कोई हेजिटेशन नहीं थी। उसमें मुझे ये नहीं कहा गया था कि आप T20 कैप्टनसी ना छोड़िए, बल्कि उसको बहुत अच्छे से रिसीव किया गया कि बहुत एक प्रोग्रेसिव स्टेप है और सही डायरेक्शन में है। तो उस टाइम मैंने कम्युनिकेट किया था कि जी हाँ, मैं ओडीआई और टेस्ट में कंटिन्यू करना चाहूंगा, अनलेस कि ऑफिस बेरर्स और सिलेक्टर्स को लगे कि मुझे ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं करनी चाहिए। और ये भी मैंने कॉल पे क्लैरिफाई किया था उस टाइम पे। तो मेरा कम्युनिकेशन बीसीसीआई को क्लियर था उस टाइम से कि मैं क्या करना चाहता था। और मैंने ये जैसे बोला कि मैंने ये ऑप्शन भी दिया था कि अगर ऑफिस बेरर्स और सिलेक्टर्स को लगता है कि मुझे नहीं करना चाहिए, तो वो डिसीजन उनके हाथ में है।
So Virat Kohli breaking his silence, suggesting in a way that he too was caught unawares by the decision to remove him as ODI captain, virtually amounting to a sacking. You mentioned there, Vikrant, Rahul Dravid and his role. What does Rahul Dravid now have to do in your view? How does Rahul Dravid ensure that the team goes to this major South Africa tour where they have a real chance perhaps of winning in that country for the first time? How does he ensure that there are no camps in the team? How does he get Virat fully involved in winning this tour? What can he say to a Virat Kohli?
In terms of Virat, Rajdeep, I don't think Rahul has got anything to do. Virat would want this tour to be the best tour that he's had as captain, and then in the remaining part as the ODI player, because he would also want to prove himself. What Rahul needs to do now is man management, and I think he himself would be a case study. Remember, as a player, when he was the understudy to Sourav Ganguly as the captain, he was a tremendous player. When Rahul became the captain, and since if you go back 16 years from now, Sourav was also sacked after coming from Zimbabwe, winning the series 2-0, getting 100, and then being sacked. Even then, he wasn't informed by the selectors, to be very honest. I'm not saying two wrongs make a right, but he wasn't informed about the decision then as well. But then Rahul Dravid would also look at history, look at his own captaincy history, because his captaincy, even though India won in England, they won in West Indies, they lost the World Cup. And that 2.5 years that he was the India captain, or 3.5 years that he was the India captain, they had major controversies with Greg Chappell, with Sachin Tendulkar, with Sourav Ganguly, and the other senior players. So Rahul would not want that situation to come again, for that situation to repeat itself. Because if you have the same situation, you may not have.
Sorry to intervene. The key word, of course, that you're using, Vikrant, is man management. Rahul Dravid's man management skills will be tested. But Rahul Rawat, you speak to a lot of the other players. How are they seeing what is happening? Many of the younger players that you speak to, how are they seeing? Are they at all affected by what's happening around them, all this surround sound? Or do you believe that the team in that sense is fully united and this is all media surround sound?
Well, good that Virat has once again clarified on Rohit Sharma, because it seemed, speaking to a few of the players, they also seemed a little divided, because as Vikrant also mentioned, they could not, maybe there is no rift between the two, but at some stage there are differences of opinions between the two senior players. For example, playing Ashwin in England, Ashwin didn't get to play a single test match in England. He's the number one spinner. He is considered to be the best spinner in the world at the moment. Some think that Ashwin could have played a test match, but Virat perhaps wanted to go with his faster bowlers alongside Ravindra Jadeja, but that didn't happen. So there is a division between the players also. And now that there is a clear demarcation as to who your white ball captain is, who your test captain is, which perhaps could be the reason, how players would feel that the BCCI or the selection committee took this decision. As far as these very players are concerned, at times Virat used to change the 11 so many times that players would not feel secure. Rohit Sharma, the day he gets appointed, the first question that he's asked, he says that alongside, and he was sitting next to Rahul Dravid, he says, our priority would be to make people, the players, secure in this dressing room. They will be given enough matches to prove their mettle.
Right.
And Virat was, Virat used to change, but that's not his fault. Whatever said and done, today he's not your ODI captain, but he is still the one of the most successful ODI captains. And who are ahead of him? The likes of Clive Lloyd, Ricky Ponting, Graham Smith. These are the kind of legendary captains who are ahead of him in terms of win percentage. So he would perhaps feel a little let down, and because he's won 70% of your ODI matches as captain, and he has led India in 2 ODI ICC tournaments. The one is ICC Champions Trophy. You finished as the finalist, lost to Pakistan in that final, and then the 2019 World Cup, that 2-day affair against New Zealand in the semi-final, which on day one it seemed that India could win that semi-final and make it to the final. So he would sense, but I would think that Virat also would feel a little lighter today. Now that, because all sorts of stories that have been coming up in newspapers, social media, because these were coming from sources. Nobody spoke to Virat. Virat today came face to face via this virtual press conference. Exactly the 3 points that people wanted to ask him about his ODI captaincy, about his relationship with Rohit Sharma, and the manner in which he was sacked as ODI captain, and the T20 captaincy. So, and he's answered them. So I think he would feel a little lighter. On the other hand, BCCI would now feel that they are on the back foot, because it's the player. What you have somebody like Rahul Dravid as your coach in that dressing room, but player is always the superstar. Be it Kapil Dev during Sachin Tendulkar's captaincy, or anybody for that matter. Player is always the superstar in your camp.
Let me stop you again, because let's hear what Virat said about his relationship with Rohit Sharma. As I described them, 2 greats of the game, one in all formats, and Rohit certainly in white ball and increasingly in Test cricket as well. Listen into what Virat had to say.
मेरे और रोहित के बीच में मैंने पहले भी ये कितनी बार एड्रेस किया आके कि हमारे बीच में कोई भी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, और ऑनेस्टली मैं पिछले 2 या 2.5 साल से मैं इसको क्लैरिफाई करे जा रहा हूँ रेगुलरली, और मैं थक चुका हूँ इस चीज को क्लैरिफाई करके, क्योंकि ये बार बार सवाल मुझसे पूछा जाता है। और मैं आपको एक चीज गारंटी के साथ बोल सकता हूँ कि मेरा कोई भी एक्शन या मेरा कोई भी कम्युनिकेशन कभी भी टीम को नीचे लगाने के लिए नहीं होगा जब तक मैं क्रिकेट खेलूंगा।
This Virat, Rohit, the 2 big stars in a way of the game, Vikrant. For the longest time, post Dhoni, it was just Virat. But we've seen in the last 24 months, Rohit Sharma, both in white ball and Test cricket, also becoming a major influence in Indian cricket. Is that part of the problem? Virat hasn't been as successful in ICC championships, and certainly not in the IPL. He hasn't been as successful as Rohit Sharma, who has been remarkably successful as Mumbai Indians captain. Do you believe, therefore, this was inevitable, that this was going to be a transition that was going to take place, and across the world, we now have a split captaincy, and therefore, we as fans, we as observers also should get ready for the idea of a split captaincy? Rohit for white ball, Virat for red ball may be the ideal combination.
Well, Rajdeep, if India had won the T20 World Cup, this won't have happened. If Virat had himself not conceded the T20 captaincy, it may not have happened. I mean, yes, I think India were lucky enough that they had Virat, and they also had somebody like Rohit Sharma to fall back upon. And if Rohit Sharma, his leadership qualities weren't all that well known, maybe Virat would have stayed as your captain. Just because you had Rohit Sharma as an option, you went to him. I think there's nothing wrong in having split captaincy. Again, I'm not suggesting that Virat did anything wrong. I mean, the Champions Trophy final, India lost in the finals. The 2017, India had one bad day, they lost in the finals. 2019, they played very well, they lost in the semi-finals. So I would not blame just the captain alone. Yes, this T20 World Cup, not just on the field, off the field, was a disaster. I mean, backing somebody like Hardik Pandya, who's not playing cricket now. He's not playing cricket now while we are into mid-December, but the captain wanted him in the World Cup team. I mean, did the player let him down, or did Virat himself overestimate? So these are the issues that the selectors had to ponder upon. And I don't think there's any reason for any speculation now that the captaincy switch has happened. And Virat has himself said that I would not do anything that hurts the Indian team or Rohit or any other player. That's a point well taken. I'm sure Virat also knows now that somebody who's not scored a century in the last 2 years, yet he's got 70 international centuries under his belt. I mean, 2 years ago, if I were to say that he would get to 100 centuries, that would have been a normal conversation. Now, with him having not scored any century in the last 2 years, there is an if attached to that. But it might just happen. There could be monkey off his back. Right. You never know. Like I said yesterday, he's been somebody
because
whose batting became very aggressive.
You're almost suggesting, Vikrant, that eventually Virat will perhaps have to do what Sachin Tendulkar did. That, you want to revive yourself as a batsman, and no one doubts that Virat is one of the greatest of all times. That maybe just focus on your batting, relieve yourself completely of the captaincy pressure. Do you think that is possible after this South Africa tour? That Virat may well say again, like he did with T20, enough is enough. I've proved myself. I want to now focus only on being the best batsman I can be. Do you see that happening, Vikrant?
Rajdip, I've felt in the last 2 years that Virat Kohli has just been one afternoon or evening away from regaining that glory. 100, and maybe 2 more will follow. 5 more can follow. But till that 100 comes, you never know what is going to happen. He's not somebody who's been out of form, out of touch. He's looked good. He's got his 50s, his 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. It's just that he needed one big 100, which maybe might happen now in Centurion or Johannesburg or Cape Town. It's not just about those hundreds now. I think people were concerned about Indian cricket in the last 12 months, even though they beat Australia in Australia, and technically India beat England in England as well. But the off-field stories, again, the BCCI or the players themselves, the other senior players themselves, I think that is something that Virat could not anticipate. Maybe he realizes now that there could have been a problem with his own style. And being a captain doesn't necessarily mean stepping onto the field, getting those big hundreds, or making your team win. It is also about carrying the team forward, the youngsters, the senior players. How do you take care of somebody like Ashwin's ego, or how do you take care of Ashwin's problems vis-a-vis somebody like Kuldeep Yadav or Shubman Gill? That is what I think Virat may have. I would say may have skipped. People say that he wasn't very approachable. Maybe Virat would realize it now. The monkey off his back doesn't necessarily mean, now that he's free of the pressures, he'll score runs. No. Virat Kohli is somebody who made his captaincy style into his batting style. I mean, he was somebody who was ferocious. He had teeth he could bite as well. Remains to be seen now. When he's not the captain, how does he motivate himself? I'm sure Test cricket is not going to be a problem. I think T20 could be.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, because Virat Kohli in a sense has got the team to play almost in his own image, much more aggressive, much more in your face. Now that has had its drawbacks, but it's also had its huge advantages. And as you said, there have been moments in the last few years where perhaps man management has not succeeded, but there have also been some remarkable moments where Indian cricket has truly taken the next step forward. I keep saying there will be a pre-Virat and a post-Virat era in Indian cricket, especially when it comes to issues like fitness on the cricket field. So let's end this discussion by saying it's been a remarkable era of Indian cricket under Virat Kohli's leadership, and maybe it's time for change. But I just wish that this change and transition had been managed better by the BCCI. The BCCI needs a full-fledged, top-class professional communication team at the very outset. Vikrant Gupta, Rahul Rawat, for sharing your wisdom, your thoughts. Thanks very much. Let's take a break. The news continues here on India Today. Thanks for watching.